All right, Brad, we're down to the final four, mate. Good weekend last weekend for you, mate. Good few people on the Telegram followed you in on Saquon's longest rush. You could have backed that 3 times, mate. There was some big long rushes. Your line was 18.5, but he cleared that by a bit.
Well, you know it's good. Well, A, he cleared it a billion times. B, it went off 20.5, and we tipped 18.5. And then C, it's now 23.5. So we've that's gone now. I mean, I think it's probably still a good bet over given the Washington run defense, but we'll get there.
And Scary Terry, longest reception, 25 plus yards as well, on a bit of a swing pass and yards after the catch. So it wasn't probably the way you maybe drew it up, but it doesn't make any difference. It won, and that was a cracking game as well. But last weekend's games were a hell of a lot better than the wildcard round, I felt. So yeah, we'll move onwards and upwards. Before we look, it's pretty simple, straightforward. AFC and the NFC Championship game, starting with the latter first, because the earlier game on Sunday. We met the guys at Matchbook as well at ICE this week, and we just had a great week in Barcelona. Met a few people. Ryan Smith from Pro Football Focus. I think got a few fans. Ricardo from Unibet is going to listen to us now as well, so he hadn't listened to us previously. But yeah, look, delighted to be associated with Matchbook as well this season, and do check them out, especially this weekend, because there'll be tons of different bet builder options. You can bet on player props and whatnot, and they do have a very good offering over there. If you want to get involved with a free bet, 50 quid free bet, use the bonus code POD50, POD50 when signing up. Full terms and conditions can be found at the promotions tab at matchbook.com. First game, Commanders, Eagles. Brad, 3.5 or 5-2. You can back an all money on the Commanders, a shorter price than they were last week against the Lions, and you can get them +6 at 197. 47 is the total. You've got one under prop here, Brad, but break it down in terms of what you feel is the best angle. I get the sense that talking to pre-recording, it's not so much the side, but you're finding it hard to see where the offensive success is for both sides here.
Yeah, well, so when I saw you on, I think it was Tuesday, I said it was all Commanders +6, Commanders money line, and that was based generally on the Eagles being offensively inefficient, I think. So we'll start with the injuries quick, which they look a bit iffy. So one is the center, Cam Jurgens, missed practice last 2 days now with a back injury. And then they had the left guard, I think it is, Landon Dickerson, who is not center size. He's like 350 pounds. He's been playing center. So that's quite interesting. I think if you're missing 2 practices and you've got your guard playing center, that to me suggests it might be serious. And then obviously Dallas Goedert as well. He's missed practice all week as well with an ankle, I think it is. So maybe he'll go, but he's big as a blocker as well as a receiver. A, he's getting 4 catches a game from Hurts. He loves checking it down. He loves throwing it to him off RPOs. And then B, he's a much better run blocker than Calcaterra, the backup tight end. So both of them are big. So maybe a little bit more inefficiency there. And then a lot of it's about Jalen Hurts. Anyone who's watched these last 2 games, he's struggling. He's not seeing the field. He's not throwing with anticipation. He needs to see something wide open before he throws it. Was it 7 sacks against the 49ers? And if you go through the time to sack, there was one, I think it was under 2.5 seconds. Everything else is like 4 seconds, 6 seconds, which is, you deserve to get sacked. If you no offensive line, even the best offensive line in the league, and everyone knows I love the Eagles. No one can block for 4 seconds if you're just sitting there in the pocket. And all year long, it's sort of, I feel like it's got worse recently, but it's always been fine because he's mobile, right? If he invites pressure, but sometimes he escapes. In the run game, you have to respect Hurts as a runner. But now he's got this knee injury, and after he took the knee injury, he didn't scramble once last week. I think the only time they gave him a tush push, which was wiped off, and then they gave him kneel downs at the end of the game. They gave him a couple of rollouts, so he's obviously not like fuck or broken.
Yeah, but it didn't look good. It didn't exactly look good. He couldn't plant his feet. Obviously, the snow was back. Yeah, it doesn't look good. No.
And I think one is quite interesting. You can see the effect of Hurts. So when he went out in the first quarter of this game, of this last matchup, was it week 15, 16?
We were on the Eagles that week.
We were. I think we bet -3, close 3.5, and then we lost. Anyway, we're not angry. But the first quarter, Eagles rushing success rate 60%, 1 EPA per play, like shredding them on the ground. Hurts goes out at the end of the first quarter, and for the rest of the game, they had a 20% rushing success rate. And Saquon still had a 60-yarder for a touchdown, but the down-to-down efficiency disappeared because suddenly they just stack the box, go after Saquon leave everyone one-on-one on the outside. So I think that's going to be the plan here. It's going to be let's make sure Saquon doesn't beat us. If Jalen can run, he can run. He is injured somewhat. I saw Dr. Chow saves maybe 80%, something like that. So if Hurts wants to take off, let him. And if he wants to throw through the air, let him. Like if he completes a bomb to AJ Brown, fine. Because I think I'm nearly certain that the Commanders would rather die like that than just say 260-yard touchdowns. So generally, I think slightly less efficiency from the Eagles offense.
Well, they did a good job in that win against Saquon. If we think back a few weeks ago, he had the explosives, but down to down, they actually had pretty good success rate against him in that one. So there is a template there.
It's similar last 2 weeks. So again, by adjusted scores, the Eagles have not deserved to win either of these 2 playoff games. And if you think about like Green Bay, they fumbled the opening kickoff touchdown in like 3 plays, and then they're behind the 8 ball. And so Green Bay actually had the better adjusted stats for that. And then last week it was a tie against the Rams. And if you think about that, LA team, short week, coming from the wildfires to like a snow game, and you basically play to an exact tie by the adjusted scores at home in your conditions against like a porous run defense, that's concerning. And it was not a good success rate last week either. It was 40% or so, which is not elite. Again, and now obviously they ripped off 3 40+ yard touchdowns. But that's I don't know. It's feeling like without Jalen's legs, those are a little bit less likely to happen. So then obviously the question is, do we want to go Washington or do we want to go under? And I was leaning Washington until I read our old pal Brandon Thorne. And obviously the big injury last week on the Washington side was Sam Cosmi, I think it's the left guard, the right guard, one of the guards. And now obviously that's against Jalen Carter. So he says, this is Brandon Thorne, due to the Cosmi injury, this has become one of the most obvious mismatches of the entire playoffs, with a strong possibility that Philly gets more than 20 pressures this weekend. So that's not ideal either. You've just got a glaring hole in the middle of your offensive line against one of the best defensive tackles in the league. And then you look at the style of defense that Philly plays, which is much more of this zone. Now, obviously, last week, the Commanders, they scored 45. But it was blitz, it was man heavy, and then they're already down 2 corners. And then early in that game, their top corner goes down. I forget his name off the top of my head. Not Terry Arnold, the other one. Amik Robertson. He gets injured in the first quarter. And they're still blitzing with like 3rd-string corners, and they get absolutely torched. But yeah, Vic Fangio is almost the exact opposite strategically to that. They
play loads of zone. Yeah, they play zone all day. And I know they won't bring in half as much pressure as what the Lions brought. I thought the Lions' plan wasn't. It backfired. And you just always presume, you blitz a rookie quarterback, that it'll just scare the shit out of them. But I blitz Hurts before I blitz Daniels in a major way. And also, you look at Daniels, and if you think back in terms of, someone was asking me this during the week, has a rookie quarterback ever won the Super Bowl? And thumbs up, it hasn't. We were out for dinner with YOLO guys, actually. We were chatting about it. And I was thinking back to the guys who've had success, in the last 20 years from my memory, like some Mark Sanchez, Ben Roethlisberger. But if you look at all those guys, Joe Flacco's got deep in playoffs his rookie year 2008, but they are all unbelievable defenses, really strong running games. Can you say that about the Commanders? Is there a running back? There's no Saquon there. You've got obviously Brian Robinson, Eckler, and that defense was ranked 18th, 19th in the league across total league. What this guy is doing is different gravy. I think there's one player prop you were looking at there, Dyami Brown. So his yardage line, I think, is like 43 or 44, something like that. If you go back 2 weeks ago, I think you're at 21, 22. He has established himself as the number 2 wide receiving option opposite Scary Terry over the other guy, Zacharias. But it's a very different situation going against that secondary versus the Lions secondary outdoors as well. I think if the Commanders have success, I think it's going to be more on Jaden Daniels running the ball. But Dyami Brown, first of all, 3.5 receptions, you're going under at even money.
Yeah, so you covered a lot of it there. So we'll go under receptions because he is still the deep threat. He's again, anyone who watched that game last week, they like to chuck it downfield. But yeah, so he's elite against man coverage, Dyami Brown. This is another stat from our old pal Judah. is that he's actually the best receiver against man, even better than McLaurin in terms of efficiency. But he is not the same receiver against zone. And then just the sheer quality of the corners. As I say, last week he was against third stringers on an island. This week he's going against zone defenses, 2 safeties over the top, and elite cornerbacks. Assuming what's the one with the shoulder injury? One of the Eagles corners has a shoulder injury and he left after 9 snaps last week, and he's going to play this week. He's really good. I can't remember his name.
Long Ice, man.
Yeah. So anyway, the Eagles corners are elite, as good as it gets, and they're better at football than Dyami Brown. So I just think we've seen inflation, as you say, like 22. Last week it was 35. This week it's 44. He's fine, but he's not that good against zone, and he's working these corners. And as you say, it's outdoors. So I think it's a little bit of a sell high situation.
100%, yeah. You're chasing number even with the 40 odd as well on the receiving line. I kind of touched on it from my side. I think if you look at where probably Washington is going to have success, I think it potentially is on the ground. I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels maybe more than Brian Robinson. I do kind of wouldn't be turning anyone off Austin Eckler receiving props as well out of the backfield. I think he might have a pretty decent game. I pulled this stat, but the problem is I can't remember where I pulled it from because it was the other day. But I'm not going to take credit for this one. But I hate not giving credit to whoever had it. But so during the playoffs, Daniels' designed runs are 32% of all Commanders' runs, including Robinson and Eckler and whoever else, Jerry McNichols or whoever the third running back is. And that's versus 16% in the regular season. So there's a hell of a lot more design. And that's not even taking into account where, obviously Eagles potentially are going to play way more zone than obviously the Lions didn't, and that Jaden's going to take off. So I'm going to build something here, 60 plus rush yards. His main line is about mid-50s, but I'm also going to pair it with anytime touchdown of 475, just under 4-1 in old money. And look, also just from the Eagles side of the ball here defensively on the line, Deron Payne hasn't participated in practice on Wednesday or Thursday as we're recording here on Friday afternoon. And if he's out, that is a major loss. I'm not saying he is, but he's got knee and finger injuries as well. So, yeah, he's had 36 tackles for loss and over the last 3 seasons and 20 sacks over the last 3 seasons. He's actually a very underrated player, so he's big for that line. So that's my bet builder for this one. Jaden Daniels, 60 plus rush yards and anytime touchdown. I feel if you're backing Washington this week, Brad, like what if you're getting there? Are you playing the ceiling here and backing them at 5-2, or are you taking the 6? And because like the Eagles, what's your kind of steer on that? Because I know you were kind of on them early in the week in terms of it being the side play.
Yeah, I think I like. So yeah, I think it's still the right side, the Washington, and I think backing a good quarterback as a dog, you're always going to be. Backing a much better quarterback, you're always going to be in the game. I think it is the money line, because Judah was talking about this on his podcast, that if the Eagles get behind, if they, for whatever reason, they do start slow, they've started slow in the first quarter all season long, and they have to throw to get back in the game, and it's on Jalen Hurts, well, they've not really shown an ability to do it. But they haven't trailed in a game since like week 3 or something stupid. They've not been behind in the second half all season long. So there is definitely a world where Washington comes out hot. They've been playing hot the last 3 weeks, haven't they? They put up 2 touchdowns.
And their defense does remind me of that Falcons defense that went to the Super Bowl and lost that big one against that big lead against the Patriots that time. Dan Quinn coach as well. But yeah, and they're just playing fast. There's not. I wouldn't say there's probably a lot of what's the word I'm looking for. Maybe I don't think it's probably terribly. That's the word. Yeah, it's not a terribly complicated scheme, but sometimes when you just get somewhere fast and everyone's just moving around and buzzing, it can just frustrate an offense, and especially with Hurts, I think there's serious doubts there, and I don't know if the market is taking enough of it, because obviously success Saquon's had in recent weeks, you're going to just put it on him that he's going to carry this team and that O-line. So I don't know. I would not be comfortable laying the 6 with the Eagles here in this one.
Yeah. So yeah. And so if they do get down and Hurts has to throw, we don't think he really do it. I thought there was one other note I would say that made me think the Washington defense was a decent matchup, which is if you get rid of the ball within 2.5 seconds against them, they're like nearly bottom of the league. if they make you hold it longer than 2.5 seconds, they're 10th in success rate. And I think that's kind of a defensive line stat, as in if they're causing pressure, if the defensive line is getting there, they're good. But if there's no pressure for whatever reason, then the back end is very mid in terms of players. So that injury, Daron Payne, he's big. And then I think Bobby Wagner's banged up as well. He's been missing practice with an ankle, so that could be big as well. But Hurts does hold the ball, doesn't he? So he's like second longest time to throw behind only Lamar Jackson in the entire NFL. So if he's letting the defensive line get to him, so yeah, it seems like that's quite a nice matchup, you know.
I think there's one or just we'll close this one out here, but like if you look at the fourth quarter of this game in Washington a few weeks back, and you know, obviously Hurts went out injured. You pick it under center for the Eagles. But the Eagles defense, as good as they are, they got tired in that fourth quarter with, you know, this constant hurry up. And we kind of shit on them small, but at the start of the season, Cliff Kingsbury, that is, in terms of him running out of plays with, you know, when he was back with Kyler in Arizona, he's done great there. And this is where he's, you know, just keep him as an offensive coordinator. Don't make him a head coach. Just this is his thing. And obviously he's just got a sensational quarterback too, which helps. Like it was a massive upgrade over Kyler as well. So yeah, I'd be aware of that one too. I just thought the Eagles were absolutely gassed in that fourth quarter. You just got the sense every time the Washington had the ball, Eagles could not get off the field. They kept hurrying up the line. Eagles couldn't substitute. And yeah, I don't know. I'd be watching that as well, even if they're down by, you know, a touchdown going into the fourth quarter. I wouldn't be banking I wouldn't be counting the Commanders out in any way. Want to finish on that, Matt? Anything else?
No, go on. We'll move on. I'm just going to wrap the under more.
All right, man. Let's move on. AFC. We've seen this one before, Matt, a fair few times the last couple of years. Bills, Chiefs. Market has stayed, you know, pretty solid all week. That's been a bit more Chiefs money around, I'd suggest, than Bills, but 1.5 is the line currently. Bills getting the 1.5, leave money at matchbook.com. 48.5 is the total. I think you probably have more of an opinion on the last one, mate. But look, there's this narrative central here again, very similar to the game last week. But talk to me about the Bills last week against the Ravens. I feel that was almost one that the Ravens blew more than the Bills kind of won, and those turnovers were so huge, weren't they? And
yeah,
I just do not see the Chiefs making the same mistakes as the Ravens did last week. They're unbelievably sloppy.
Yeah. So again, adjusted scores, they had that game perfectly equal as well. I think 24-24. So yeah, it was a coin flip, and I thought it was interesting. Even in the commentary, Tony Romo was basically saying he thought Baltimore were a much better team. He said the Ravens have margin for error. They can make a few mistakes, where he's like, the Bills do not. And they didn't make any mistakes.
They didn't.
Just fewest turnovers all year. I think what's one of the really interesting things to me is the run game, where the last two games against top 5 run defenses in Denver and Baltimore, they've run the ball really well, like 50% success rates. Obviously, Allen threw for 163, I think, last week. They just didn't really use it. So you would think that would travel. Well, it's been good so far. But yeah, that's one of the things that jumped out to me, how well they've just run the ball.
Give me a player prop, mate. Noah Gray, over 15.5 receiving yards, 187. He's good in these kind of spots, isn't he? 2 catches with this guy probably gets you here with this.
Yes, that's the thing. So the Bills defense, they love the too high shell, which generally funnels targets away from the outside into the middle. And I just think they cannot let Kelsey beat them. Like the entire world watched him last week, rumbling around with his old man speed, battering into people. And I just think the Bills will go two hats on this bloke and like F the rest of it. This is all that matters. So yeah, that looks reasonable. There's one other one which I'm quite interested in, which I talked about, is Samaje Perine over 7.5 receiving yards. So top stat here, number 21% of targets against the Bills have gone to running backs, which is the 3rd most in the league. And Perine has gone over this number in 15 out of 18 games this year. He didn't go over it last week, which is maybe why it's low, but he still played plenty of snaps. So I'm kind of confused why this is the number. Like he's gone over it all year long, and it's a good matchup. So why am I wrong? What am I missing, Sally?
What was so like? Where is he in the depth chart? So you have Pacheco, Hunt. It says
Pacheco, Hunt,
possibly, yeah, it says possibly the only way why it is that line. Like, is he on the field that much? Because, like, I mean, Pacheco's obviously working himself way more back into that offense. But I get you. But I mean, like, if it's third down or if it's a 2-minute warning or 2-minute drill or something like that, he's probably in there. And that's what you're kind of banking on, that he gets that. But, like, I mean, the problem I've always had with the pass catchers for the Chiefs this year is just trying to fucking figure it out. It's just like, outside of, like, even Kelsey hasn't had success outside of the playoffs. And it's a bit of a fool's errand. I mean, I think a guy that's going to be really popularly bet this week is Hollywood Brown, because you can absolutely beat the Bills secondary. And I think this is possibly a Mahomes type of game. And I think the success offensively for the Chiefs, I think, is going to be in the passing game rather than the ground attacks. So, yeah, I think that guy's going to be probably a bit overbet as well. I'm definitely not picking holes in him yet, but I'd imagine that's why the line is that. It's just, if you're backing Chiefs receivers, it can be unbelievably frustrating. I don't mind the no grey ones. I think they're probably going to use 12 set a fair bit. They kind of yinged and yanged a small bit last week against the Texans away from that, but I think Noah Gray is going to be on the field enough to get that line over, and it's a low enough one to get. And like you said, I think they're going to potentially blanket Kelsey as well. Milano is going to be big coming back into the Bills there as well in terms of rushing Mahomes, so Gray could get the dump off stuff as well. One there just in terms of the Bills receivers. So I think the damage that Shakir did back in November against these guys, obviously, look, anyone who listens to this podcast regularly knows that I love the guy, but I'm going to go a different route here for the Bills, and it's Keon Coleman, who's been kind of quiet in recent weeks because he hasn't had to be pretty big, but 25 plus receiving yards at 2.15. I wouldn't turn anyone off a ladder here, because I think the way I see it, following Shakir's success in that game, 8 catches, 70 yards, I think Trent McDuffie, best Chiefs corner, is probably going to follow Shakir a bit more, even if he does line up in the slot. And I think Coleman against man coverage could be a very good deep option here. I wouldn't be backing his reception line or anything. And yeah, I like him here. 25 plus receiving yards at 2.15. Would not turn anyone off going up the ladder, because he probably is a bit of a boom or bust character, but you can kind of rule out Amari Cooper at this point. And, like, in terms of pass catching options, have you got James Cook out of the backfield, Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Khalil Shakir, and Keon Coleman. And I think Coleman's going to be the guy to stretch the field, and they may be playing a small bit of catch up at different points. You saw another bet elsewhere, Matt. AFC game, more points in the NFC game. Would you say with 365 and 10?
Yes, I'm sure it's probably more widely available. Those are just places I've seen it. Both 1.87. So we spoke earlier about just look at the number at Pinnacle right now. The AFC game total is 48. NFC game is 47. So I feel like 1.87 for more points in the AFC is probably fair. But as we have discussed, I think the NFC game goes under the total, and then I kind of think the AFC game goes over. And part of this Buffalo defense, which is still bad, now. Since week 10, including the playoffs, they are 26th in the NFL in drop back success rate. Now they're probably going to be missing safety Taylor Rapp, and I've got some interesting stats about Taylor Rapp. Where are they? These are from Nate Tice, who works at Yahoo now. So with 350 plays without Taylor Rapp on the field, the safety, they're 30th in drop back success rate. They're 32nd in EPA per drop back. They're 32nd in explosive run rate, and they're 32nd in yards per play allowed. That's all pretty bad. Now, Milano, the linebacker, he's got a hammy. He's been missing practice. There's a chance where he's probably going to go, but you know what hammy's like. Pop that at any minute. And then one of the corners is injured, isn't it? Christian Benford, he's been on the practice report all week. So I kind of feel like the Chiefs get their points. I do feel like they didn't look that good last week, but the Houston Texans are perfectly designed to mess them up with 2 elite edge rushers against the exact weaknesses of the Chiefs' offensive line, and then 2 corners which can just sit on the outside and shut them down. So I kind of think the Chiefs get their points here. And obviously, if Josh Allen starts going in hero mode, he can score 30 on.
He's going to have to. He's going to have to. But yeah, look, even these games previously in Arrowhead, he does come to the party. I think it's Mahomes I think his line is 250 passing yards. I wouldn't be throwing anybody off that. Honestly, I think this is the one where you see Mahomes play a bit of hero ball himself. So yeah, the over might be a look. But yeah, I think it's for me, Keon Coleman's probably the strongest play here as well. But yeah, look, it should be a good game. I lean Chiefs. I don't know about you if you lean Bills or Chiefs, but I'm still kind of leaning on the Chiefs side there.
Yeah, probably Chiefs, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's 1.5 as well.
Yeah, I think it's spot on. All right, let's do a recap before we get out of Dodge. In the first game, Brad likes De'Ami Brown under 3.5 receptions at even money. I'm going to build one with Jaden Daniels, 60+ rush yards and anytime touchdown of 475. We just covered it there. Brad likes Noah Gray over 15.5 receiving yards, 187. I like Keon Coleman, 25+ receiving yards at 2.15. P. Ryan, Brad, would you get there? Would you be advising the 7.5 over reception?
No, I was just brainstorming. I was just thinking out loud.
No, that's okay. It's okay. Yeah. It's good to talk these things out, man. And also, Brad likes whatever way you can get it here on kind of weekend specials here, AFC game to have more points than the NFC Championship game. All right, Brad, penultimate show of the season, mate. We'll be back in roughly 2 weeks' time for the Super Bowl. Thanks for listening today. Thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe, say nice things, all that kind of jazz does get our content out to a wider audience, and is much appreciated. Best of luck with your Sunday conference championship bets, and we'll be back for the Super Bowl. Bye for now.